All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about what might just be the most unlikely and honestly one of the most successful criminal operations on the entire planet. North Korea's state-sponsored hacker army.
$600 million. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. That's how much was stolen in what was, at the time, the biggest crypto heist ever. An absolutely staggering amount of digital cash, just poof, gone.
And the culprit behind this massive, high-tech crime? You guessed it, North Korea. A country that, let's be honest, most of us picture as being kind of stuck in a technological time warp. So this raises the huge question. How on earth is a nation famous for its extreme isolation and poverty pulling off some of the most sophisticated cybercrimes the world has ever seen? To really get our heads around that, we've got to start with the crime that blew the lid off this whole thing for a lot of people. What I'm calling the $600 million paradox. This is the wild story of how a super popular online video game accidentally exposed a massive, state-run criminal empire.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 2022. There's this online game called Axie Infinity, and it is huge. I'm talking people were quitting their day jobs to play this game because its in-game currency was directly connected to the crypto Ethereum. It was real money. And then, one day, that money just wasn't there anymore.
So what happened? Well, the entire system that handled the money, this thing called the Ronin network, was completely compromised. It was a total takeover. The hackers basically walked in the digital front door and were able to drain hundreds of millions of dollars from players, swap it for Ethereum, and make off with a massive payday.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. While the hack itself was super modern, the behavior behind it, well, that was anything but new. This crazy heist is really just the latest evolution in North Korea's long history of state-sponsored crime.
You can see the pattern pretty clearly when you look back. In the 80s, they were masters of physical crime. They printed these counterfeit super dollars that were so good they were often considered higher quality than the real bills. By the 90s, they'd moved into trafficking everything, drugs, weapons, you name it. Then, fast forward to 2014, and you see the pivot to digital with the Sony Pictures hack. So the Axie Infinity job in 2022, that wasn't them starting something new. It was them perfecting a game they've been playing for decades.
So, the big question is, why? Why do they do all this? To get that, you have to understand this deep conflict that sits right at the heart of North Korea. It's this clash between their official ideology and cold, hard reality that basically created the perfect breeding ground for a global hacking empire.
So it all starts with their state ideology, known as Juche. On paper, it's all about total self-reliance. This idea that the nation can provide for itself, completely cut off from the so-called evil capitalist world. But the reality for the average person there, it's the complete opposite. Poverty, constant food shortages, and almost zero connection to the outside world.
At the exact same time, you have another system called Sungun. Think of it as this super rigid social structure. At the bottom, you've got the hostile class. In the middle, the wavering class, who are basically living in that state of poverty we just talked about. But at the very top, you have the core class. These are the elites, the top generals, party officials, the people the regime absolutely depends on to stay in power. And for them, life is very, very different.
And right here, this is the fundamental contradiction that drives everything. The ideology of Juche demands total isolation, but the elite Songun class needs foreign money, hard currency, to buy things like luxury goods, advanced tech, and most importantly, the components for their nuclear weapons program. So, how do you get foreign money when you're completely cut off from the global economy? Well, if you can't earn it, you steal it. Hacking became the perfect modern solution to this problem.
So that's the why. Now let's talk about the how. I mean, how does a country where most people can't even get online manage to create a world-class army of cybercriminals? The answer is a pretty chilling and incredibly effective state-run pipeline.
It all starts really early. The government literally scouts for kids who show exceptional talent, especially in things like math. Those children are then pulled into these elite training schools, and they're not just learning to code, they're being groomed for absolute, unwavering loyalty to the regime. Once their training is complete, they're handed forged passports and shipped out to secret overseas cells in places like China, where they have the high-speed internet they need to launch their attacks.
And look, this isn't just some theory. We've got actual eyewitness accounts. There's this story from an American guy who accidentally ended up staying in what people now call the Hacker Hotel in Shenyang, China. He said he walked into the lobby, and it was just filled with North Koreans. And on the TVs, they were playing propaganda films showing North Korea winning the Korean War. So you have to understand, these aren't just rogue criminals. They are loyal soldiers on a mission, operating from foreign soil.
So what exactly are these cyber soldiers up to? Well, their playbook today is way more advanced than just hitting video games. They're running a whole diverse portfolio of incredibly sophisticated digital attacks.
Yeah, their tactics are always changing. Of course, there's the big crypto heists, but they also hit hospitals and businesses with ransomware. They conduct espionage against defense companies to steal missile plans, and they are absolute masters of social engineering and phishing. But maybe the most ingenious and terrifying tactic is something called the job by proxy scheme. Get this. They have IT workers use fake IDs to land high-paying remote jobs at tech companies all over the world. So not only are they funneling that salary straight back to the regime, they also get deep, trusted insider access to company networks. It's the ultimate Trojan horse.
And if you want to understand just how big their impact is, just look at this. According to some estimates, North Korean hacking groups are responsible for about half of all the cryptocurrency stolen in the entire world. Let that sink in. One small, isolated, and impoverished nation is behind 50% of this massive global crime wave. The scale is just mind-boggling.
Which brings us right back to where we started. How is all this possible? Well, the crazy thing is, the answer lies in our own perception. The world's view of North Korea has become its single greatest weapon. They've built an empire that's hiding in plain sight.
Think about it. When you first heard North Korea was behind that massive crypto heist, your first reaction was probably disbelief, right? The Hermit Kingdom, this place of poverty and propaganda, running a cutting-edge global hacking operation, it just sounds absurd. And that right there, that's the world's biggest misconception about them.
And it's their greatest weapon. You see, if you can convince the world that you're just this backward, slightly crazy country that can barely keep the lights on, it provides the perfect camouflage. Nobody takes you seriously as a cyber threat until it's way too late. The two images, the impoverished nation and the cyber superpower, they don't contradict each other. They actually work together perfectly.
So, when you really boil it down, this isn't just a story about North Korean hacking. It forces us to ask a much bigger and, frankly, a much more unsettling question. If the entire world could so badly underestimate a threat of this size hiding right out in the open, what else are we underestimating?